Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Forking Around Town podcast. And, today my guest needs no introduction. I mean, Dr. Barbecue, Ray Lampy, how are you?
Hey, Tracy, good to see you.
It's good to see you. I'm just so excited because I've wanted to have you as a guest for so long. And this is like one of my goals in life.
Well, you had my phone number, so I'm not taking any blame for that. All you had to do is call.
I know.
I don't know if I've ever said no to a podcast. I've done some. I have no idea where the guy was, if it ever aired, what the heck was going on. But why would I say no? Of course I want to do it. So yes, it's your fault for not calling.
It's my fault. But hey,
we're here.
We're here and I'm excited. So first and foremost, for those, for anyone listening who might not know a lot about your history, I wanted you just to kind of like share your story of how you became Dr. Barbecue, because you're one of my favorite food personalities.
Well, thank you. It's been a wild ride. The name is actually, is that what you're asking about, the name?
Yeah, everything.
The name's a lame story. So I went to my first barbecue cook-off in Chicago in 1982, but there was one a year. I would go to this rib cook-off and it was fun. And then in 1991, it ended. And then I found the Kansas City Barbecue Society, which was in its infancy too, but at least there was a few. I could go to Iowa and go to one. But anyway, so I was kind of getting into this. So I bought myself a new van and I lived in Illinois, and they'd never allowed vanity license plates in Illinois. You could only get like 3 letters together. Yeah, it was the weirdest. I mean, it's way back.
That's weird.
So they finally said, okay, we can have 7 letters now, because we were always jealous of the other states because we couldn't do it. But anyway, I sent in, this is how long ago it is, I sent in the postcard and it said what my 3 choices were. And I wrote on the postcard that, because I called them and they sent me the postcard. I filled it out with my 3 choices. And I honestly don't even know if Dr. Barbecue was my first choice. I don't think it was. Okay. Like Mr. Barbecue, maybe, barbecue guy, barbecue. I don't know. It was just to have a silly license plate for my van. And the Dr. Barbecue license plate showed up. I stuck it on my van. Didn't really think anything of it. And it's obviously stuck. And, I never intended to, now everybody's building their brand and thinking this through. I wasn't. It was a different time, and it just was one of them things that happened.
Well, I think that's how the best things come about.
I do too. I think we overthink stuff a lot these days.
Yes, I'm the worst at that. I'm trying to get better, but I've noticed that anytime I do like a reel on Instagram, if I'm just fooling around doing something funny, they always do the best out of everything versus something I spend forever planning on. So
it's so true.
Just winging in life. So I wanted to, because now, I don't know if you remember, but I was trying to think of the first time I met you. And I want to say it was 2010, 2011. It was somewhere back there. But I actually wrote a blog post about you for DAT's restaurant on their website. That was a long time ago. Before
I was involved with them.
Yes.
Yes. Well, Suzanne was great. She used to do that radio show with Kim, and she was always great. She must have saw me in the paper or something, and she called me years and years ago, and she always stayed in touch. And every now and then, like a good radio person should do, every 6 months or whatever, I'd get a call saying, hey, why don't you be on the show? Or if I had a new book or something. So that makes complete sense. I don't remember that. Was it the DAT's blog then?
It was.
Oh, okay. No, I don't remember that.
But I remember being nervous because I called you, and it's so funny. I was nervous to call you. I go, oh my gosh, this is Dr. Barbecue. He has cookbooks, and I'm actually talking to him. It was funny, but it's a true story.
Well, Laura Riley locally here Laura's with the Washington Post now, but Laura wrote this article about me, and she said he has the perfect level of fame because, like, if you know who I am, I've done a lot of stuff. I'm really a big deal. If you don't know who I am, if you're not a Food Network person or a barbecue freak, you don't have any idea. I'm just some goofy old guy with tattoos on my arm, and it's I was just at the Whiskey Bent barbecue store in Lakeland. That girl's handling me with my new products, and this guy walks in and he has no clue who I am. I'm standing there with one of the guys that works at the store, and he just assumed the guy would know who I was. And the guy goes, yeah, I don't know. He looks, he told me I look like Colonel Sanders. I said, well, thanks. I do. I understand that, but I didn't always. Most people, that's not the first thing they know about me.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm humbled on a regular basis.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. And another thing I do remember is you were doing a book signing at DAT's, and I was hanging out there with you. And I remember And so this is why I know what one of your favorite drinks, Jack and Coke.
That's true.
I asked you, what can I get you from the bar? You said Jack and Coke, and I'll
Actually, Diet Coke, but same difference, right?
I'm a Diet Coke person too.
That's actually true. That's like I said, Suzanne was really great like that, and she would always buy a bunch of my books, and I was just getting started. I always really appreciated that.
Yeah, I remember because I worked for Dad's briefly as a hostess. Gosh, that was a long time ago. It was just kind of 2 days a week for fun, and we had your cookbooks on display. And I just remember when people come in and they'd be looking through it, and I was always excited when someone purchased one.
They were all signed. I signed all of them for sure.
Absolutely. So now I wanted to know more about like your story of how did you get to Tampa from Chicago and all that stuff?
Well, I've never been to Tampa.
Well, St. Petersburg, but Tampa Bay, I know.
So part of my story is Sandy, who you know Sandy,
yes.
I call her my wife. We're not actually married because we're old, and it's like a business decision when you get to a certain age. And the business decision has been to, at the moment, be single. Next month it could change. But anyway, Sandy, who is my wife, we live in the house she grew up in yes. St. Pete. Now, Sandy lived in Tampa for 20 years and was married to another guy, but she likes St. Pete much better because that's her home, and she will fight you if you talk about St. Pete and Tampa being the same place because they're not. That's why I always have to defend her honor and say Tampa is not St. Pete. But I actually I just came from their Lakeland. So I was living in Chicago, and in the winter, I was into the barbecue contest thing, but I had a successful trucking business. So I in the wintertime, you're looking for an excuse to go to Florida, essentially.
Yes,
so
I can see that.
There was a barbecue cook-off in Lakeland in January, and I would always come down for it. I'd either bring my stuff down and cook or fly down and judge or something. But I would always come to Lakeland. So I got to know some people there and had friends. And the trucking business ended. It was time to do something different. I was going to be a barbecue guy. I bought a food truck, and I was looking for somewhere to go. I knew I needed to go somewhere warm. I couldn't stay in Chicago. And so Lakeland had checked all the boxes. It was warm. It was probably redneck enough that I could sell barbecue in a parking lot somewhere. And that was true.
That is true.
I knew they liked barbecue because they had this massive barbecue festival every year. So I was like, what the heck? I'll move to Lakeland. And I lived there for 10 years. When I got there, I needed somewhere to live. And I mean, it was a hard point in my life. I was selling 2 houses and a successful business. And all of a sudden I was going to be living, I needed to not spend any money, because I had essentially a pile of money, and I knew I needed to make it last as long as I could till I somehow found my way into my new business. So I moved into this little duplex in this redneck part of Lakeland. I mean, it was fun. I really enjoyed it, but man, it was like going from living in Chicago to living in the country. It was pretty interesting. But I'm a guy, so I never cared. I had 2 bathrooms, and I didn't want to have to clean them both, so I piled one with trophies. I had 1 million barbecue trophies. I filled it up with trophies and never used it. It was never a bathroom, and I don't know if you'd have ever known it was there because I just had it blocked off. And,
trophies.
So anyway, I ended up living in this place for 10 years, and finally Sandy's like, well, why don't you just come over and live with me because this place isn't that nice that you're living here. So that's how I ended up in St. Pete.
That is great. No, and you know what? It's funny that you say that, though, about how she feels about Tampa and St. Pete, because I get a lot of that. Whenever I'm in St. Pete, people say, what part of Tampa is that? And I go, it's 2 different cities.
No, it's a thing. And in Tampa Bay, we think saying Tampa Bay solves the problem. It doesn't for people that don't live here. They still think it's Tampa, and it's fine. But if you live here at all, they're very different communities. I personally enjoy them both, but I don't think they're the same at all.
I prefer St. Petersburg. I do. I've always felt that way. But it's very similar to out in California, like living in San Jose versus San Francisco and the way people are with the two.
Well, but it's almost worse. It's almost like San Francisco and Oakland, because there's that water in between and you have to go over the bridge. And we both know a lot of people that just never go over the bridge.
I don't know why.
I do it all the time. I think nothing of it.
I know.
I think it's beautiful. I always think, wow, this is really a cool view. People come from all over the world to see this view, and we live right here.
It was really funny. Before you got here today, I was chatting with an old friend of mine back home who just moved up to, where Eureka is? It's way up in Northern California.
No, I don't think so.
He moved up to the mountains, and we were actually just talking about the old days, like 20 years ago when I used to live there. And Oakland was actually one of my favorite places.
Oh yeah, I like Oakland too,
Got some
right?
great spots out
I
there.
probably like Oakland better than San Francisco, to be honest.
I know. I haven't been out that way in a while, but he was just telling me stories about the homeless problem is pretty bad out there. So sad.
Yeah.
It's sad.
We don't have a solution for that. I wish I did.
I know. Just let's give them all barbecue and we'll make everybody happy.
There's a famous old barbecue restaurant in Oakland that I went to, Hillerick and something like that. Hillerick, and it was two names. And it was one of them places that's been there forever. And I bet it's still there. It was a cool old place. I always remember that.
It probably is. It's really funny, though. Lately, I've been connecting with a lot of people in Oakland, and it's all about food. This one gentleman just messaged me and said, "How do I get my sauces in your hands?" I said, "Well, here's my address. You can send them to me." But it just seems to be an influx of people from Oakland. I'm having fun right now, just meeting and connecting with a lot of people back there. So
yeah, well, and people in Oakland are very much like St. Pete too. I got friends there, and they love Oakland. They don't think it's not a good place at all. They love Oakland.
It's
they think
beautiful. It really
you should
is.
definitely live there instead of San Francisco.
Yeah, probably a little bit less expensive too. Yeah. I was actually born in Walnut Creek. Do you know where that is?
I don't think so. No.
Just right next to Oakland. Very
Oh,
close.
okay.
Yeah. So kind of the same. So then how did everything just come about with you, writing 9 cookbooks?
Yeah, 9.
I mean, that's a great amount.
Yeah, I was. So the barbecue truck thing was, it was okay, but it wasn't the kind of living I wanted to make. I always tell young people, if you think you want to be in a food truck, and they all do, all of your young cook thinks that's what they want to do, find the best food truck and follow him home. And see where they live, see what kind of house they have, what kind of car they have, and see if that's the lifestyle you want. And it wasn't the lifestyle I wanted, what I could achieve with that. So I figured I got to do something different. What else can I do? And I was pretty famous in the barbecue world at the time from winning a bunch of contests. So I just tried to explore different things. What else could I do that would go forward and make me somehow find me a job or something? And a friend of mine was starting up a barbecue magazine in Iowa, The Barbecuer. I mean, this goes way back, a printed magazine. And so I called him and I said, well, I want to write the Ask Dr. Barbecue column. So I bought AskDrBarbecue.com, which is what you did at the time, and I still have it. And I said, we had to make the questions up in the beginning. But then little by little, we got questions, and it was pretty good. But then he sold the magazine, and he said, I'm just done. He actually bought me my first, I used to always have these chef jackets with the flames on the collars, and he actually bought me those. That was part of the deal. But then he quit, and so someone told me you should call Dave DeWitt. Dave is the Pope of Peppers. Dave started Chili Pepper Magazine. He started and ran Fiery Foods Magazine, and to this day runs the Fiery Foods Show in Albuquerque. Dave is the man. Dave's written 35, 40 cookbooks. So I called Dave, and he's like, yeah, I could always use some more content for the magazine. So he offered to pay me regularly, which hadn't been happening before.
I know
it wasn't a lot of money, but it was something. And we became friends, and he was a mentor to me in a lot of ways. And one day he called me and said, hey, would you like to write a cookbook? I was like, God, yeah, I live in Lakeland, Florida. I'm selling barbecue out of a truck. And trying to find something else to do. Yeah, of course, I'd like to write a cookbook. I'm not sure I know how. He said, well, I'll help you. I'll help you with this one. So Dave co-wrote my first book, and almost immediately abandoned me in a good way, because he said, you know how to do this. You're just natural at this. So the first book, if you're going to write cookbooks, the first one's the easy one, because you've been saving up stories and recipes and all kinds of stuff your whole life. And you know what you're going to write. It's easy. The second one is really hard, because now you don't have all that stuff. You used it all in the first book.
Right.
And then the third one, if you can do the third one, now by then you've learned how to be a cookbook author. So Dave got me started, but the deal was I had to take the agent with the deal, because they wanted Dave to write this book, and he couldn't do it. He was committed to, he was writing the Spicy Food Lover's Bible, which was a big deal at the time. And so I was like, yeah, of course. So I take this agent, ended up being a great agent, and he got me 9 cookbook deals, including the NFL Game Day cookbook, which was a huge deal. I wrote a book with Big Green Egg that took a lot of work on his part to make that work right. And so it right place at the right time. But to this day, I don't know how to type. I type like, I don't want to say two fingers.
Well, Hut and Peck is what they call it.
Yeah, like this finger here has one job. It has like one key over there that it does. But I've written 9 books like that, so I'm not going to try to learn how to type now.
I was going to say, yeah, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
But I've just always been like that. I really just, I'll try anything and turn, some things I might be good at, others I may not. Well, I was pretty good at writing cookbooks. Unfortunately, it's just that it's sort of a tough business now. We thought that the business, I got pretty involved after, 7 or 8 books in the industry, and along came ebooks, and we thought, well, this is going to kill the cookbook business. Well, it really didn't. It just changed it. People still wanted cookbooks, but they wanted them to be more of a gift kind of very short topic, 8x8, 50, 75 recipes instead of the big massive.
The big thick one, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it had turned into. But it was a good run at that as well. What really killed it was the next wave, which were people that would do it for nothing. And, I made a lot of money writing cookbooks. Now there's people be doing it for nothing, and I can't do that. It's just not worth the trouble.
I know what you mean. I see that a lot, and everyone's into that digital marketing right now, where they're doing all their books online and self-publishing them, and it's yeah.
Well, so I tell people all the time. So when I was writing cookbooks, it turned out I was good at it, and I had a good name. And I was kind of famous in that world, and that's why they wanted me to write cookbooks. Now people write cookbooks because they somehow think that's going to make them famous. So it's the complete ass backwards to me.
I was going to say, that is.
But backwards. So if you think it's going to, I guess that's a reason to write it for no money, but it doesn't make sense to me. Gosh, it's like giving the milk away and nobody wants to buy the cow. I don't know if young people even know that saying anymore.
They probably don't know. I know what that saying is. Come on, I know what that is. Wow, yeah. It also during the pandemic. Did you notice how many people were coming out with cookbooks?
Yeah, because they're all sitting at home doing nothing, right?
There was a lot. In fact, there was.
Well, and then with the internet and didn't mean to cut you off, but it's so easy. I don't say it's easy to write. It's not easy to write a good cookbook. It's easy to write a cookbook, and so everybody could just do it. And these days we have. I launched my new rub business, and I've done this multiple times in my life. It used to be really hard to get a logo, and of course we didn't. I had to carry the file to the printer or something. We didn't have boom, send it to the guy and he's got it. And now you just don't even need the specific type of file. It's so easy now, and it's not that expensive, and it's changed everything. It's just so much easier to do something that looks really cool, and then you could have your book printed at Kinko's, and it looks like a really good book, and not that it's not, but it may be or it may not be.
Yeah, that's like I was telling you about Canva, that program. I did a couple little journals on there, just messing around to try to sell them on Amazon. I actually sold a couple. I was kind of shocked.
Nice.
Oh, I made $8.
Yeah, I shouldn't say no money. Okay, yes. $8 is technically not no money.
That's terrible. But yeah, I just, I haven't really put a lot of time into it. I was just messing around with it, but it's kind of neat, I was trying to help people with, that are trying to either give up alcohol or, improve their diets. So I just made a journal, kind of what I used when I was going down my own little newfound way of living, and it helped me a lot. And so, yeah, that's kind of
I think, that's what people want, our personal experiences. So if you've got some good ones, why not?
Exactly.
And you got that $8 now.
I know. I'm just gonna put it back in there. Get some more.
You went to Starbucks and it was gone.
Well, technically one was mine, so we should take out $3.
So you can get most of a coffee at Starbucks.
Exactly. My coffee is like $5.50, I think. Yeah, it's an expensive one. So one thing I wanted to ask you is, for me, I love cooking, but I'm not good at grilling. I don't have a grill right now. I mean, I'm sure I could figure my way around it, but what would you recommend for someone who's just starting?
Well, I like charcoal. So I really, what looks like the easy way would be a gas grill, but the food just doesn't taste as good. And if you're going to buy a cheap charcoal grill, it's going to be junk. It's just not going to be that good. I bought a Weber kettle. Weber kettles they last forever. Okay. I bought one not long ago on Facebook Marketplace. I needed one for a specific project, and it was $50. And it was probably $200 new, but they last forever. The guy didn't want it anymore. For $50 on Facebook Marketplace, I had a Weber kettle, or buy a new one. They're still not very expensive. And learn how to cook with charcoal. That's what I think is the way to go. It's a great way to start. It's not that expensive, and it's how most of us started. Anybody that I know, I got a lot of friends that are very important barbecue people, and almost every one of us started with a Weber kettle and a bag of charcoal.
Well, like Mr. Ian Beckles, when we're in his little building space here, when I worked here for years, he was always grilling something. So I got very spoiled. I mean, all of us did working in this building. We were eating all the time. So if I ever needed to use one, I would just come here because he's got a couple.
Or just come here and hang around, and Ian would feed you.
He always does, yeah.
Well, that's how Ian and I became friends. I worked for Big Green Egg for years as their chef, and Ian has always been a supporter of Big Green Egg, and that's how him and I first got connected.
I was going to ask you how you met him.
I think that's how. I always knew about him, and I knew he was a Big Green Egg guy, and I never... we had so much going on when I worked with Big Green Egg. It was booming, and like guys like that were doing so well promoting Big Green Egg. We didn't need to call them. He was doing it anyway.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it just it was that cool of a product. It's a good question. I'm sure that's how we ended up getting connected, but I don't remember how I ever first met him, though, to be honest.
Yeah, I was just curious, but yeah, he's done some pretty incredible things on the Big Green Egg. Yeah, during the pandemic, there was probably 6 of us working here in the building, and we had fun on some of those days.
Well.
we did eat well and got creative, and I have to say I like grilling pizzas. That's fun for me. But pizza's my
well, who doesn't? Matter of fact, Sandy just told me to pick one up on the way home
Paul's?
when I leave here. Yes. Oh. Yes, Paul's, exactly.
Okay.
Right on the way.
That's another question I have for you is I want to talk to you a little bit about Chicago cuisine in general. Especially, we'll start with pizza because, I remember growing up out in California. What was it? Pizzeria Uno. Do you remember that place, that
sure.
chain restaurant?
Yeah.
So that was like when I was a kid, I remember thinking that, okay, that's what Chicago style pizza is. Now, I do have family out there. So, of course, when I went out there, they're like, no, this is, the thin crust, square cut. Mm-hmm. But it's just funny to see like the differences. And I wanted to ask you, like being from Chicago, how all that came about.
Well, I think Uno, I just saw the other day, they just celebrated their 80th birthday. So it's not like this is new. I'm not trying to claim it's new. What it is a specialty item. In Chicago, it's people are the wrong impression. I think it's starting to finally we're making the change. Yeah. People in Chicago, in all the neighborhoods and the suburbs, they don't go home on Friday night and order a deep dish pizza. Right. That's just not, because it seems absurd when you think about what it is, and it is absurd. So no, we didn't. That's not what we ate on a regular basis. Yeah, it was for me. It was a specialty thing. Once in a while, we'd take a ride downtown, and we'd get one of those, and it was cool. I mean, it's not like it's not good, but it's not pizza. I just don't even think it is pizza.
I mean, the crust was, I just remember I went to Lou Malnati's and what was the other one, Giordano's?
Giordano's ended up being a big chain, and Uno's did as well. And I mean, again, those are there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
But for every one of those, there's probably 100 pizza joints in Chicago cooking square cut thin crust pizza, and that's what people live on. So that's what always bugged me, that became we sort of got tagged with it. Like it makes me mad, and I see it a lot in the barbecue world. People don't, and I blame the food writers of New York in general because they were so influential along the way. Maybe not so much anymore, but they didn't want to bother coming to Chicago and eating in the neighborhood. When they came to Chicago, they stayed at the Palmer House. They walked over to Gino's East. Well, hell, this is what Chicago people eat. Yeah. Meanwhile, next time you go there, ask all the people in the dining room where they're from. They're not from Chicago. I call it tourist pizza.
That's true. I never thought
but
of
it was
like
an easy story to write. Oh yeah, this is Chicago pizza, and it's just not true. We see it with the barbecue world a lot, and it's because that's my world. It bugs me. Memphis dry rub versus wet. Like you would think everybody in Memphis is fighting over wet versus dry rib. They don't care. I was writing a book called Barbecue Road Trip, and I was all around Memphis, and I was at this place, a barbecue shop, the barbecue shop, like not one of the famous ones. Yeah. And I was talking to the guy, and I said, what about this wet rub, dry rub thing? He goes, I don't care. Same ribs. I'll put some sauce on them, or I'll put some dry rub on them, whichever way you want. Yeah. That'd be fine. I don't care. But he couldn't wait to tell me about his barbecue spaghetti. Barbecue spaghetti is a big deal in Memphis. It's on every menu. Okay. It's really what people like.
I would try it.
Right. Good. It's usually a side dish. I think of it as like poor man food. Like when you were broke, that's what you ate. But it's on every menu. And this guy took it serious. He made his sauce was very particular about how he made his barbecue spaghetti sauce. But meanwhile, nobody talks about that. And then the number one menu item in Memphis is a pork sandwich, pulled pork, with coleslaw on top of it. But wait a minute, I thought that was a North Carolina thing. So this is just a bunch of nonsense that people don't want to bother going and doing their homework. And that's to me what happened with the Chicago-style pizza. Much like a Philly cheesesteak. When you get a Philly cheesesteak, when you go to Philadelphia, if you order, you could probably get mushrooms and peppers on your sandwich, but you might get your ass kicked, too, for asking.
I've heard that, too. And you have to get it with Cheese Whiz, right? I mean,
yeah, well, there's Cheese Whiz, and then they use like white American, too.
Yeah.
But Cheese Whiz is totally acceptable, and onions. Onions are common, but peppers and mushrooms are not. But meanwhile, if you don't bother to go to Philadelphia, that's what you know.
Exactly.
You go get a Philly cheesesteak at Applebee's, and I'm pretty sure it's going to have peppers and mushrooms on it. Yeah. But you know what else? You know what's cheaper than beef? What's that? Peppers and mushrooms.
Exactly.
So,
it's a filler. Exactly. No, that's funny. Ian, he just, he's not here right now, but it's just funny. He would always add pepperoni to a Philly. It's actually really good.
I could see that. Well, he played for Philly for a while, so it's probably a legit thing.
Yeah, it was actually really good.
Sounds pretty good.
Actually, West Shore Pizza up the street was the first time I had one like that. I thought it was interesting.
Sounds pretty good. I might have to try that.
Yeah, it's not a bad. Now, one other question, Chicago hot dog. Who do you think makes a good one around here?
Those are pretty standard.
They're so easy, I know.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's a truly defined thing, and we all know what's supposed to be on it. And if it's on there, great. If it's not, then you didn't make it, right? That's not a Chicago hot dog. So the things that are optional, though, you're probably going to ask about the poppy seeds.
Yes.
So poppy seeds, I do too. I always like the poppy seed buns. But if you go to all the famous places in Chicago, and unfortunately, like a lot of things, all the cool old ones, they're not all necessarily there anymore. But it was always, you could have seeds or not. That was not really a thing. The things that were mandatory was like a Vienna dog or one just like it with the skin, so it would be cracky. The green relish, the crazy green relish.
It's kind of sweet too.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Love it.
And it's like neon green. It looks like it's glowing. The mustard, of course, onions, tomato, then sport peppers.
Sport peppers are fantastic.
For sure are a thing. And then the other one to me that's optional is celery salt. But it's common, but it's not everybody uses it.
Okay.
So, but if you're Jimmy's Hot Dogs in Chicago, actually Gene and Jude's is a good example.
Okay.
On River Grove, very famous old place. I've been eating there. I've been eating there since the 70s, and it was long since it'd been there way before that. They don't have poppy seed buns. But if you're them, you don't have to have poppy seed buns.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But if you're going to try and create it now, I think you need to have poppy seed bun. Portillo's does it. They do a good job with their hot dogs.
I actually like their hot dogs.
Yep,
Yeah.
I
I've been
agree.
to the one over in Tyrone Square Mall. And Brandon used to be the one I would go to, but I hate driving to Brandon. There's something about it.
No.
It's just it's the traffic. That's all that it is. It takes so long. So for me, it's easier to go to St. Pete.
I know.
I'm closer.
I was really happy because I live in St. Pete. And to go to Brandon is even another 20 minutes from you Tampa folks.
Yeah.
But I would do it regularly, find an excuse to go over there because it's just, Portillo's is, it was one of the original places in Chicago, but it's become a big chain now. Yeah. So it's not necessarily the best, but it still tastes like home.
That's the hard thing when you expand like that. Sometimes it loses the specialty of it. I don't know. Now, one other question I have about Chicago, Billy Goats, because I went there before a Madonna concert. I was eating greasy cheeseburgers.
We just learned a lot about you in one sentence.
And Cosmopolitans. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
I'd never been to Billy Goat. I don't know why.
It.
Well, you gotta, Chicago's 9 million people in the metropolitan area.
Huge.
So downtown, it's interesting. Now when I go back, often I'll be downtown at one of the fancy hotels, and I would maybe go to Geno's East. I did actually a couple of years ago, and it was terrible. But back in the day, if you live out in the suburbs an hour away, it's a big city. So it depends on what side of town you're on. And Billy Goat just was not in my wheelhouse, so I can't speak to it. I knew a lot of people like that and a lot of places like that, though. So it's a real thing.
It was awesome. I know they have a couple locations, and the one I was at was by the United Center, and I'm telling you, those burgers were great.
Yeah.
I probably had 3 of them.
Nice.
It was just weird with Cosmopolitans. It was the strangest thing, but it was a good night. And then,
that seems like the way to fire up for a Madonna concert.
Yeah, I actually got to meet her.
Really?
And I couldn't speak. Weird. That's a whole other story. It was just weird to see her right there and nothing. I was just like, this is Madonna. Nothing came out weird. I don't feel the same way about her anymore. She's changed a little bit, but yeah, that was definitely an experience. Well, I want to hear about your rubs. I mean, holiday season is coming up and they make a great gift.
Well, thank you. So it's a new project for me, but it's a project I've been waiting to do for a long time. Probably close to 10 years ago, I made the hot chicken rub. I was there's 4 of them. There's hot chicken. Sorry, I didn't even bring any with me. There's a hot chicken one, Italian beef one, which is a Chicago thing, a Chicago style steak and chop, which is all purpose, and then peach chipotle, which is the sweet barbecue rub. That's one for ribs and stuff like that. It's really good. But the hot chicken one I did a long time ago, and I worked for Big Green Egg, and they had products, and they didn't want me to bring it to market. And then with the restaurant, we did a little bit with it, but we didn't use it a lot in the restaurant. It was going to be confusing. We had a peach chipotle barbecue sauce at the restaurant. I didn't want to do a sauce after, so I just converted that into a dry rub. And the Italian beef is also something I've been making forever, and I always wanted to make it into this rub. And the other one was just an all-purpose. So it's a project I've been waiting to do for a long time. All of a sudden, I found myself with nothing else to do at the beginning of this year, and I was like, well, I guess it's time to do that.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, I definitely need to get some. I'm going to practice with some grilling.
Well, I mean, they're good for in the kitchen too. You know, the Italian beef rub. So we were talking about Chicago food. Italian beef, that's the thing we really eat in Chicago that people don't talk about that much. It's finally starting to get some attention because of The Bear, that show. But
I heard about that.
You take this rub, you put a half a cup of it, a half cup of oil, 3 cups of water, and warm it up. And then I used to buy a roast, and I bought a slicer for making it. And I saw somebody one day talking about just buying roast beef at the deli. So you make this and throw it in there, and in literally 5 minutes, you have really great homemade Italian beef. There's a video on my Facebook page on my website. I think one of them has the whole process, but if not, just go to Publix, buy some good roast beef, throw it in there, and it's great.
I'm going to try that. I think my kids are going to be up in New Jersey visiting their dad's mom for the holidays. Maybe my first Christmas without my kids. It's kind of weird. So I'm going to have a lot of extra time on my hands, hang out with my dogs.
Eat a lot, yeah.
I'm going to eat a lot. I'm going to try some of that stuff. I mean, I'm
Perfect.
going to take some time off.
I'll get you some, remind me.
I'll make some. It'd be fun. Well, last but not least, I appreciate you coming, and I just wanted you to share with everyone how they can find you if they want to follow you on social and buy your rubs.
Well, it's great to see you. Glad we've reconnected.
Yes.
I'm not hard to find. If you Google Dr. Barbecue, you'll find me. My website's drbbq.com. On Instagram, I'm real Dr. Barbecue because DRBBQ was taken, and I didn't feel like taking up that fight. But I'm not hard to find. The only thing I'll say is, like, if you Google Dr. Barbecue now, you get a lot about my restaurant that has sadly closed a year ago because it was the same name as me. So you kind of got to sort through all the restaurant stuff to find the old stuff about me. But I'm not hard to find.
No problem. Well, I'll be sharing a link to everything on my YouTube channel. And again, thank you, Ray. I appreciate you coming. This has been fun. I'm excited.
Pleasure's mine. Glad we finally got to do it.
Absolutely. And I have to say, I'm with you on hating the Packers.
Good. That's my girl, man.
I'm still not over when they beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl.
Pretty much everybody hates the Packers except those few Packer fans in Wisconsin, and the rest of us all hate them. So
yeah, and the Cowboys, they're right up there with the Cowboys for me. Anyways, well, thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget, a new episode comes out every Friday on radioinfluence.com or wherever else you like to download and listen to your favorite podcasts. And you can catch every episode on YouTube at Tracy Forks Around Town. Have a great afternoon and great weekend.